Hey YouTube. Well, normally I don't want to deal with the political scene because I see the political scene as nothing more than a distraction to keep us away from looking at issues that is really gonna concern all of us. All this is just a political Ponzi scheme. All the sex charges and NFL, Hillary, yeah, she is a crook, we know that. She's a pissant, we know that. Obama is a pissant, we know that. McCain is a pissant, we know that. Most of the politicians in Washington D.C. are pissants, we know that. And it's quite frankly a waste of time. We actually need to look at other places that is really gonna concern all of us. And it has nothing to do with politics. Even though that what is gonna concern all of us on a longer perspective, well, that has become a political agenda. It has become a religion, and I'm speaking to this so-called global warming that has been renamed to climate change during the Obama regime, this pissant, communist, Muslim, faggot bastards. Yeah, excuse me, I am speaking my mind, and I'm not gonna shut up, and I'm never gonna shut up, because it is all wrong. And we are to call a shovel a shovel. It is that simple. And this political correctness and this so-called safe spaces and this, we can't say that because then we offend somebody. Yeah, then be offended. And if you are offended and you want to defend yourself against the accusation against you, come with some solid arguments, instead of just starting screaming like little bitches on the streets, like you've been doing ever since Donald Trump got in office. I'm not saying I'm trusting Donald Trump. Not at all. I don't trust anybody that has something to do with politics. It's that simple. I don't care what many good things they're doing. There is still something going on behind the scene that you and I are not familiar with, or we are not being informed about. And that is a very dark and sinister plan to enslave every woman, man, and child on this planet. And those who don't want to be enslaved is going to end up getting their head cut off the Muslim way. Because I see it like this. This so-called Antichrist, he will be in favor of Islam because Islam has over 1 billion blind followers in this satanic cult that Islam is. So it will have to be someone who can speak to their heart, meaning that I believe that the Antichrist would be a Muslim. I don't believe he's a white guy, white supremacy guy, as you wish. No, I believe that is someone who can collect the Muslims. And now the world has been brainwashed to believe that Islam is peaceful, loving, and tolerant. And we are seeing the result around the world that is definitely not the case. Let's just take an example. You saw all these beaten up women in this sequence here. You know, there was a whole lot of pictures in one frame of women. These are Swedish women being raped by Muslims because Muslims think that they are allowed to rape you. That's what they believe. It's their right to do so. So let me give you a little statistics. And this statistics is from back in 2010. 17% of all girls in Sweden under the age of 18 years old has either been sexually assaulted or raped by a second-generation Muslim immigrant. How about that? And I mean, it is just unbelievable. Well, let's stay on this, and let's see what's going on here in America. And here we got in America, Americans, which we can see all of them pretty much. There's a single dude standing right there who don't know jack shit about the people that he is supporting. Well, I don't mind refugees, but when the refugee problem or influx has an invasive agenda to it, which been launched gradually by the Bushes, but it for sure been launched further on steroids during the Obama regime. So let's take a look at this. It says here American taxpayers will spend more than $4.1 billion in the 2017 budget to support the 519,018 refugees who has been resettled by federal government into the United States since October 2009. Exactly 1 year, not exactly, but around 1 year before or after the pissant Obama got in office. According to a cost estimate by Breitbart News, then I can assure you, you want some real news, go to Breitbart.com. Okay, to put a very large number in context, 4.1 billion can buy 10,677 new homes for $384,000 each, which is an average price of a new home sold in the United States in December 2016. Or it could be bought, or it could buy 170,000 new autos for $24,100 each, which is the manufacturer's suggested retail price for 2017 Chevrolet Malibu. I mean, are we gonna pay all these money? Yeah, we are, because they're here. And now it's probably legislation without your knowledge that you are to pay for this invasion, this subtle invasion of United States of America by Muslim so-called refugees. And you saw in the images in my intro that the DEA had confiscated weapons coming from Saudi Arabia disguised as furnitures, 52 ton of ammunition and rifles into Florida, into United States of America, to be handed out to these perps that Obama, the pissant, has let into the country during his reign as a, I don't know what you want to call it, absolute dictator. I mean, he established or managed to sign over 160 executive orders, which all of them are in violation of the Constitution of America. So if you ever seen a picture where Obama is standing with a burning "We the People" document, that's the truth. That's exactly what he has done. So it says here, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Turkey, and Yemen. All Muslims. And all of them hate us. They hate us. They call us Satan. They call us the evil one. Yeah, I mean, these wars that America has instigated against the Middle East, that's a political scheme. It is not something that the common American citizen want. I can assure you that. But we've all been told after 2001, at 9/11, after that by the Bush, the monkey, chimpanzee, Bush Jr., that it was a terrorist attack. And if we are not with them, we are with the terrorist. And they kept saying that again and again and again, and that led to the wars in the Middle East in order to destabilize the Middle East. And there is a document, a memo in the military-industrial complex that America and its allies should destroy 7 countries in 5 years. Theatrical wars. One of them is Afghanistan, Iraq, and Lebanon, Syria, where they are now, definitely. And Syria, I'm sorry, your days are numbered. It's over. Damascus will fall in 1 hour. It's biblical, it's prophesied, and you see what's going on in Syria is not doing too well. And Syria is going to fall. Iran is next on the agenda to be conducted a war against. In Saudi Arabia, yeah, they are hating America but supporting America, and that has something to do with oil, the petrodollar. We have to keep that for the time being. So it just, I mean, let's just put this in a link below this video, because what more is there to say about it other than this is an invasion. And all of a sudden these sleeper cells are going to come out like the pissants they are and sneak attack us with bombings and suicide bombings, with using vehicles to drive into a crowd of people like we have seen they have done in Europe. They don't dare come face us face to face and take the fight, because they know they will lose that one. But it's all an agenda in order to push in a martial law, because the nation is in unrest. We have Black Lives Matters, which is a terrorist organization. We got the Antifa, which is a pathetic little group of people who has also been deemed by FBI as a terrorist organization. I mean, they are nobody compared to the 500,000 Muslims that has been let in by the pissant Obama during his regime. That is something we need to worry about. And something like that will trigger a martial law, and we will, whether we like it or not, we will have soldiers patrolling the streets, running around to disarm us. I just say, when they do, lock and load, shoot them. Shoot them for the dogs that they are. Now, the subject I really wanted to talk about is coming up now. Well, what I actually wanted to talk about is what I'm talking about now, which pertains to the headline of this video. Well, this is some of my pictures with my new camera, and of course it's about chemtrails. And let's just have a look at some of them. Looks pretty ghastly. This is the canopy, as I call them, a very thin sheet of clouds that is able to block the sun completely. Amazing. Very thin. Normally that would not take place, because these clouds are molecular. They are not water vapor, as clouds really are. So this is not clouds, this is artificial. More of it. You see the sun is right there, somewhere in this area here, and you see it's completely blocked out. You can't see it. Just gone. Right? And then some more. Let's see here. Sorry about the speed. Oh, that's more chemtrails. You see that? That's perfectly normal. That's what you think it is these days. Because if you notice, when you see commercials on TV, when you see the background sky, you see that there's chemtrails, making your brain pick it up and think it's normal. When you are seeing modern day TV shows, you know, movies, series, whatever, you see the sky is littered with chemtrails in order for you to think this is normal. This is perfectly normal. This is Oklahoma. Look at that blob over there. And there's a guy called WSO, who is the big shot here on YouTube right now regarding Nibiru, who would say that this has something to do with Nibiru. This blob over here. No, it has not anything to do with Nibiru. I can tell you one thing, that water, when the angle of the light is at a 42 degree, the light spectrum is broken and a rainbow appears. End of story. It's not Nibiru. It will never be about Nibiru, these so-called sundogs, rainbows. Here's one too. So that means Nibiru is in two places, right? I'm not to talk about Nibiru. I believe it's a craft. I don't believe it's a planet. You can agree, you can disagree. I don't care. And over here we got, again, and this is all chemtrails. But what chemtrails is doing is accumulating, attracting the humidity in the atmosphere, condensing it, and trapping it, and denying us natural precipitation. They can therefore steer this cloud cover in the direction they want with the help of the jet stream and other chemtrail patterns, and let the water drop in a place where it might not be that needed. California is a serious need of precipitation. You see all the fires they have over there. Wow, that is almost doomsday-like. But that's because they're being denied their natural precipitation, and the vegetation is drying up, and the aluminum, because it's having that small size, what is it, 0.23 micrometers in size, when this stuff is on the ground, it actually burns like gunpowder. And that's why these forest fires in California is so out of control and almost impossible to extinguish. That's just how it is. And some 50 miles outside the coastline of California, airplanes from the military-industrial complex is flying back and forth, north and south, north and south, north and south, north and south, all day long, every freaking day, and chemtrailing this shit out of the Northwest Pacific. And that's why California is not getting any rain. Period. More of it. Still Oklahoma. Oklahoma is severely hit by chemtrails. I drive there, well, 3 or 4 times a week, and I don't see a blue sky in Oklahoma anymore. I see chemtrails all over the place, all the time. This is around Pauls Valley in Oklahoma of I-35 north. I'm on my way to Oklahoma City. And you see, it's just profound chemtrails all over the place. All of this is chemtrails. Has nothing to do with clouds. Now, you will soon come to the end of this little barrage of pictures. And again, more chemtrails, Oklahoma. Still Oklahoma. And we're getting some more of it. Isn't it beautiful? Look at that stuff. It is highly toxic. We're being sprayed like roaches. How about that? How do you like it? Or are you just so used to it, it doesn't matter to you anymore? I think that's the problem. And you think they're doing something good up there. Oh, they're combating climate change or global warming by reflecting sunlight back to space. Well, I got a story about that in a moment. And more chemtrails. All of it is chemtrails. There's nothing natural about this. It's all chemtrails. All of it. And this one is from New York. Rick Daystar, one of my subscribers, sent me this picture and said, we've got a freaking rainbow and we don't got a sun. And again, as I said about Nibiru and this sundog rainbow to the left of the sun, is when the water is being penetrated in an angle of 42 degrees from the sunlight, and rainbow appear. And we got a rainbow, but we don't got a sun. It's completely overcast, but yet we have a rainbow so clear. That's highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. So I'm thinking, has that another agenda to it? Could that be something Blue Beam? Project Blue Beam? A test of colors? Could be, because they're turning our screen into a plasma screen, our sky into a plasma screen too, with all the spraying. I can assure you, in the old TVs, right, that gray powder layer there is on the inside, on the front, on the TV screen, is coated with barium. And barium happens to be one of the very frequently used agents in chemtrailing our sky. Yes. And what is the barium able to do? With frequencies, producing colors, and all the colors you can imagine. Now, that is very interesting, wouldn't you say? Well, now, the big subject is coming up, which pertains to this too. Okay, here is the main subject that pertains to the headline. Well, this is a headline about a volcano, a supervolcano in Antarctica, meaning the South Pole, has erupted. Well, we are all so afraid of Yellowstone. Well, we should be. It's not a thing that we wish to blow up. Okay, NASA confirms what I've been saying all along. NASA scientists admit that a massive heat source almost as hot as the Yellowstone supervolcano might be melting the Antarctic ice sheet from below. It seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, how can lakes and rivers be flowing beneath the ice unless there is a heat source down there? And if subglacial volcanoes can be melting the ice, why wouldn't underwater volcanoes be heating the seas? Which they are, people. We're living in a scientific dictatorship today. You are blindly believing what scientists are telling you, because you do not have the knowledge to dispute what they're saying to you. And you don't have the resources, nor the energy, nor the will to go in and look for yourself and see if there's any inconsistencies in what they are telling you. No, it's more important with all the Facebook and all the Instagram and all the bullshit that you're listening to and don't want to care about our world in general. So, note that the press release also admit that the ice sheet went through a period of rapid melting at the end of the last ice age around 11,000 years ago due to changes in weather patterns and rising sea levels. That might be the flood. Right there, people. It might just be Noah's flood 11,000 years ago. Yep. That might be what started the flood. I'll come to that. Do you suppose humans caused those rising sea levels of 11,000 years ago? Here are excerpts from the NASA press release. Hot news from Antarctica underground. Study bolsters theory of heat source under West Antarctica. Here's an illustration of it right there. A new NASA study adds evidence that geothermal heat source called a mantle plume lies deep below Antarctica's Mary Bird land, explaining some of the melting that creates lakes and rivers under the ice sheet. Although the heat source isn't a new or increasing threat to the West Antarctica ice sheet, it might help explain why the ice sheet collapsed rapidly in an earlier era of rapid climate change. They're using the word climate change. And why it's so unstable today. It is our fault, people. It is your fault out there. Do you listening to my voice, classroom? It is your fault that we have a supervolcano in Antarctica erupted and melting the ice. It's your fault. Because with your activity, right, you are raising the temperature on the planet, And now this volcano has erupted and melting the ice on Antarctica. It's your fault. That's what they want you to believe. The stability of an ice sheet is closely related to how much water lubricates it from below, allowing glaciers to slide more easily. Understanding the sources and future of the meltwater under the West Antarctica is important for estimating the rate of which ice may be lost to the ocean in the future. And here we're talking about a desalination process, because this ice is fresh water and our oceans are salt water. And if we are putting too much fresh water into the oceans, our ocean conveyor belt will completely cease. It's already at half, which I described to you and proved to you during the Gulf oil spill era 2010, that the Gulf loop current now is at half force of what it used to be. They have destroyed on purpose the loop current from the Gulf of Mexico on purpose, people, and it will never be restored because they have destroyed the foundation for its existence. They blew up the freaking seafloor. Okay? They blew it up completely. It used to drive with 4.6 meters per second. An underwater river going up to the southeastern part of Greenland, in between Iceland and Greenland, and then it plunges down into the deep, and it created a pump effect that drives the entire conveyor belt, the ocean current, worldwide, all of it. It is now at 2.3 meters per second. So you can times that by 3, so you get that in feet. So it was 4.6 times that by 3, or now it's 2.3 meters times that by 3. That's your difference. It's at half force, and that's not enough to drive it. And if this stuff is melting too, and there's less salt in the ocean, the conveyor belt will slow even more down, and it will be frigid cold. Even in areas where it's not supposed to be cold, meaning in the equator areas, the temperature will drop. And that's what they are gaining at. Because if they can drop the temperature artificially, maybe they even set this one off. They got the drilling equipment. You never know. Because if we have a lower temperature and we have a shorter growing season for crops, there will be a food shortage, which will kill off a lot of people. And that is exactly what they want. They want to depopulate us. And they want to make it look natural. Yeah, they're evil. Count on it. Well, Antarctica's bedrock is laced with rivers and lakes, the largest of which the size of Lake Erie. Many lakes fill and drain rapidly, forcing the ice surface thousands of feet above them to rise and fall as much as 20 feet, which is 6 meters. The motion allows scientists to estimate where and how much water exists at the base. Since 30 years ago, a scientist of the University of Colorado, Denver, suggested that heat from the mantle plume under the Mary Bird Land might explain regional volcanic activity and topographic dome feature. Very recent seismic imaging has supported this concept. The Helene Cerruti of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, first heard this idea. However, I thought it was crazy, she said. I didn't see how we could have that amount of heat and still have an ice cap on top of it. Well, it is freaking cold there. But at some point in time, the heat, if the volcano is growing, it might win over the cold. The cold will always win. It requires a lot of energy in order to suppress cold. Coldness is the major factor. Just go out into space and you will find out it's pretty cold. Some 30 years ago, oh no, with a few direct measurements existing from the under the eyes Cerruti and Eric Ivans of the JPL, which is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, concluded the best way to study the mantle plume idea was by numerical modeling. They used the ice sheet system by ISSM, a numerical depiction of the physical ice sheet developed by scientists at JPL and the University of California. Irvine Cerruti enhanced the ISSM to capture the natural sources of heating and heat transport from freezing, melting, and liquid water friction and other processes. Sorry. They found that the flux of energy from the mantle plume must be no more than 100 milliwatts per square meter. Emphasis added. For comparison, in United States regions, no volcanic activity, the heat flux from the Earth mantle is 40 to 60 milliwatts. Under Yellowstone National Park, a well-known geothermal hotspot, the heat from below is about 200 milliwatts per square meter, averaged over the entire park. Cerruti and Irving's simulation using the heat flow higher than 150 milliwatts per square meter showed too much melting to be compatible to the space-based data, except in one location, an area inland of the Ross Sea known for intense flow of water. This region requires a heat flow of of least 150 to 180 milliwatts per square meter to agree with the observations. However, seismic imaging has shown that the mantle heat in this region may have reached the ice sheet through a rift, that is, a fracture in the Earth's crust, such as appears in the Africa's Great Rift Valley. Mantle plumes are thought to be narrow streams of hot rock rising through Earth mantle and spreading out like mushroom cap under the crust. The buoyancy of the material, some of it molten, causes the crust to bulge upwards. The theory of mantle plumes were proposed in 1970s to explain geothermal activity occurs far from the boundary of the tectonic plates, such as Hawaii and Yellowstone. The Marybird land mantle plume formed 50 to 100 million years ago, long before the West Antarctic ice sheet came into existence. At the end of the last ice age, around 11,000 years ago, the ice sheet went through a period of rapid sustained ice loss. Emphasis added. When changes in global weather patterns and rising sea level pushes warm water closer to the ice sheet, just as has happened today. There we have it. Global warming again. And what did we see up here? They were talking about climate change, was they not? It's their religion. Man, it hurts my brain. Just as happened today, Cerruti and Irving suggest that the mantle plume could facilitate this kind of rapid loss, emphasis added. Their paper Influence of the West Antarctica Mantle Plume on Ice Sheet Basal Condition was published in the Journal of Geophysical Research Solid Earth. So that's the article. Well, we could go back and look at the chemtrails. You see, they want to block out the sun and reflect sunlight back to space in order to prevent that we will get this global warming. Right? But let me tell you one thing. Sun is heating our Earth, heating our subterranean areas, meaning the ground you're walking on deep down inside is being heated up by the sunlight. Okay? And the sun, which I learned in school some 20 years ago, more than that, that would be 30 years ago. No, that's freaking more than that. That's 40 years ago. Because next year in March, I'm 50 years old. And I went to school for 10 years. And when I went to school back then, I was told and I learned that the sun are 100% responsible for the climate on planet Earth. If the sun is heating up, the Earth is heating up. If the sun is cooling down, the Earth is cooling down. It's called solar cycles of 11 years. When there's a high sunspot activity on the sun, we have a heating period. When there is a low sunspot activity on the sun, we have a cooling period. And we are in a cooling period. But that don't explain why the temperature is rising, does it? No. Why is the temperature rising? That is because these materials that they are spraying up in the atmosphere have a refractive effect. That the escaping natural heat in the earth runs up into the atmosphere, hit the particulates that they have been spraying millions of tons of all over the freaking planet, especially the northern hemisphere, blowing it all over the place with the winds. They are creating a heating blanket all over. I mean, the air pollution right now. I want you to do something before I continue. Go out on a clear, sunny day, winter or summer, spring or fall, which is climate change. The seasons, the climate changes. It's getting cool some places and it's getting warm some places. And some places is in between. That's what we call spring and fall. Right? That's the climate change, which happens 4 times a year. It's natural. It's always been like that. Well, go out and look out into the horizon. Just a finger width above the horizon. Stick your hand out in front of you. Stretch your arm out in front of you. Bend your wrist. Okay? And then put a finger horizontal in front of you and line it up with where the lower side of your finger hit the horizon and the upper part of your index finger is in the sky. And then look at that area, especially that area. Look at the color difference between what is above and where the horizon is. There you can see that there is this line which I call the backdrop, or I call it the carpet, because our atmosphere is now so saturated with this stuff that if there was a Nibiru hiding there in the horizon every day, we would not be able to see it, because we will have to be looking through all the pollution, the air pollution, the millions of tons of aluminum, barium, strontium, copper, antimony. Oh, how many agents are they spraying us with up there? You can't see the horizon anymore. That's how extensive the air pollution is. All this stuff is metals. These metals are reflecting the heat coming from the Earth, which normally would escape into space and keep our Earth temperature equilibrium, meaning at a stable level, balanced. But now we have millions of tons of metals sprayed by the military-industrial complex in the name of fighting global warming or climate change. That is reflecting that escaping heat back to Earth and trapping the heat. And that is causing the temperature to rise. And if you're worrying about ice cap melting, well, there is your freaking answer. The heat cannot escape naturally anymore. Okay? It's obvious. It's like a thermal bottle they're creating around us. Exactly like a thermal can. You know, you put tea in it, right? And keep it warm in. That's exactly what it's doing. Exactly. Period. So, We're not talking about global warming because of man-made activity, so-called CO2 level rising. Let me tell you something which I learned in school too, some 40 years ago. Photosynthesis, the ecosystem, how it works. CO2 comes from burning of fossil fuels, as an example. It comes from decaying plant material. It comes from decaying rotten dead animals. It's coming from the oceans, CO2. Now, this CO2 is being sucked up in the leaves of trees growing on planet Earth, which the elite is frantically trying to destroy, like the rainforest in South America now, and other places. Now, this CO2 is being sucked up by the leaves. The sunlight hits the leaves, and there's these little green corns inside these leaves which create something is called photosynthesis. Now, when that process has been done, that CO2 has chemically in the tree's leaves been transformed to oxygen. And 80% of what the trees are sucking up of CO2 is coming from the roots. Now, should we then go out and rip up all the trees or should we just completely destroy our own planet, all the ground, all the soil, just get rid of it, plunge it into the ocean, because there are so vast amounts of CO2 in our Earth's soil? Did you hear what I said? So all this CO2 is being altered chemically in the trees' leaves by photosynthesis and creating oxygen for you and I and all living creatures on the planet to live on and breathe with. And the aluminum and the barium and the strontium and the copper and all the other agents that they're spraying up there is sucking out this oxygen that the trees are making. And the oxygen levels on planet Earth has plummeted in the last decade. In cities, we are down at an oxygen level of freaking 7%, and it should be 13% naturally. People are suffocating. CO2 is not the culprit. It is our best friend and ally in this ecosystem. And for you out there who's still in the belief that we are the reason for the climate change, you are freaking naive. This Earth has been around for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Okay? We're still here. We're still breathing. Hardly. Because we're being poisoned from the sky to the ground, and for the food we drink, eat, and the water we drink, and the air we breathe. Because they want to get rid of us. Period. So, there you go, people. I told you the truth, and I'm going to keep telling you the truth, because I got no intent of being untruthful to you. I'm for your best interests. And I'm not for the greater good, which they are talking about, the greater good. Well, the greater good would be to destroy the planet and its ecosystem in order to bring the population down, in order so there's food enough for everybody, and we can keep everybody under control. It is for the greater good. The Earth has always been changing. It changes naturally 4 times a year, which is called seasons. And the Earth is a living freaking organism which they are killing, and we are freaking allowing it. That's something you need to wonder about. We are allowing them to do this. It is not us who is doing it, but we are allowing it. meaning we are freaking guilty because we're not doing it, and we got the science behind us that what they're doing is destroying our ecosystem. I give up. No, I'm not. And I'll never shut up. God bless you. Well, I forgot to say something. So many people are worrying about the North Pole ice cap. What if that one is melting? Then we will have massive flooding of the coastlines. No, we will not have that, because that ice is floating on the water. That water has already been displaced by the ice, so the natural coastlines will remain if the North Pole ice were there or not. But if we are having a melting of the ice cap on Antarctica, that is another matter, because Antarctica is a continent. Antarctica is bedrock with a very thick, kilometers thick ice sheet, and that will have a profound negative effect if that was melting and flowing into the ocean. As I said, desalination process, the fresh water will dilute the salt water rapidly and extensively worldwide, which will have a very negative effect on the energy production, natural energy production here on Earth, and temperature-wise, the ocean current. Remember, the sun and the oceans are actually the controllers of the climate. Ta-da! Yeah, that's what I forgot. But here in the book of Timothy, it says in Timothy 2, verse 3, or chapter 3. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with them. That's exactly the times that we are living in right now. And you better face it now, or you can choose to face it then. And then it'll be all too late. Turn around and face it now, while you still can. And be saved. This world can't save you. No one in this world can save you. There's only one who can save you, and that is Christ. Yeshua. He's the one that you have to go to. This world has fallen, and is falling faster and faster and faster. And why? Because of what I just read to you. God bless you.